Shalom, family. Hope everybody's doing well. What a day, right? Mm-mm-mm. Yes, it looks like all the high IQs at the top are sick. And some are sick, but they don't want to reveal that they're sick. I don't know, y'all. I guess that's a high IQ thing, you know? All right. We're going to wait until we get about 100 people in, and then we'll get started. Boy, there are so many things coming up. It ain't even funny, real significant things. And I have my live stream tomorrow on the November blood moon that will be seen all over North America. So that is going to be a good one. Yeah, well, all we can do is just look at all the things going on. Trump's rally in Florida, it looked like his doctor gave him the nod. How the hell you give somebody the nod to go do something and they're still sick? And, it's going to be Saturday night. I'm sure it'll be live on YouTube. I think all of his rallies are. So I'm just going to try to catch a glimpse to just see what his demeanor is going to be like, of course. All right, we have 104 people. So I am going to go ahead and get started. Hold on, let me just share my screen with you all. All right, y'all. Just give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, here we go. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this Attorney General from Kentucky, Daniel Cameron, he is a real scoundrel, for real. This man is, to me, equivalent to a con artist. That's what I can compare him to. Well, there was one juror that was trying to petition a court to get permission to speak publicly because what they heard in the media did not match what happened when they were sitting on the grand jury. So this came out on CBS News October 8th, 2020. Attorney General files a motion to keep Breonna Taylor, grand juror, from speaking publicly about proceedings. So he's trying to silence this juror that wanted to come forward. And they're not the only one complaining about this particular attorney general. So Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron filed a motion on Wednesday asking the court to dismiss an anonymous juror request to speak publicly about the grand jury proceedings in the Breonna Taylor case. The motion comes after the juror asked the court in a legal filing to grant them permission to publicly disclose some parts of the proceedings. As I've stated prior, I have no concerns with a grand juror sharing their thoughts or opinion about me and my office involvement in the matter involving the death of Miss Breonna Taylor, Cameron said in a statement announcing the motion. However, I have concerns with the grand juror seeking to make anonymous and unlimited disclosures about the grand jury proceedings. No, there are things you did in that room you don't want out in the public. See, this is more about covering his butt in this whole thing than looking out for that juror. He could care less about the juror. He did things in that room he doesn't want revealed. The grand jury process is secretive. Why? And see, ladies and gentlemen, if you really think, they use the grand jury a lot when it comes down to police killings. They use it a lot. And it's not to protect the dead or defend the dead. It's all about protecting the police. That's what it's all about. And we've seen it before. We saw it with Mike Brown. They used a grand jury to get Darren Wilson off. We see it in Breonna Taylor. There have been several cases, actually. And I told y'all about Amy Klobuchar not convicting not one single cop the whole time she was the DA. And we see Daniel Cameron. So when one of us get killed, they love running to that grand jury. As soon as you hear grand jury, you should know they are trying to find a way to get the cops out of the whole thing. And they usually do through the grand jury. Okay, so they're saying the grand jury process is secretive for a reason, to protect the safety and anonymity of all the grand jurors, witnesses, and innocent persons involved in the proceedings, Cameron added. Allowing this disclosure would irreversibly alter Kentucky's legal system by making it difficult for prosecutors and the public to have confidence in secrecy of the grand jury process going forward. Well, it shouldn't exist. To me, grand jury should not exist. Nothing about a very public case should all of a sudden become a secret when it's time to go to court, unless it's in secrecy because you're just up to no good. On September 23rd, the grand jury indicted former Louisville Metro Police Department officer Brett Hankinson. And do you know he raped a few women, and that has been brought up recently, Hankinson? Yeah, he raped some women. On 3 counts of wanton endangerment for firing his gun outside of Taylor's apartment. None of the 3 officers involved in the shooting were charged directly in Taylor's death. So now they are trying to, petition the state to take over this particular case and retry it. So we'll see what happens. The grand jury conclusion fueled a new wave of protest over the fatal police shooting of Taylor, a 26-year-old Black emergency medical worker who was killed during a drug raid on her home in March. And by the way, if many of you don't know, both of them actually worked for the local government. Breonna Taylor was an EMT, and Kenneth Walker, he worked for the post office. Okay, so the grand jury proceedings are rarely made public, but Taylor's family and their attorney said Cameron's presentation of the grand jury's findings left out significant information about what evidence was shown to the grand jury and what charges were recommended. So he didn't even bring up Breonna Taylor during the grand jury proceedings. So they didn't rule on Breonna Taylor because this attorney general didn't bring her up. Really sneaky, real sneaky. On September 29th, the anonymous grand juror accused Cameron in a legal filing of using the grand jurors as a shield to deflect accountability and responsibility for these decisions. The filing asked the court to release a recording of the full grand jury proceedings and allow members of the grand jury to speak about some parts of the case. While the grand jury acknowledged that they are legally forbidden from discussing what was said during the recorded proceedings, they asked permission to share details surrounding the actions outside of those recorded proceedings and anything that did not happen in the grand jury proceedings. That includes discussion of charges that were not presented to the grand jury, explanations of the law that were not provided to the grand jury, defenses or jurisdiction that were not detailed during the proceedings, witnesses that did not testify, potential defendants that were not present, and or individuals or officials who were not present for the proceedings according to the filing. In the hours after the jurors' findings, Cameron said his office would release a recording, which they did. And it's about 20 hours of recording that was recently released. The recordings do not include the charging recommendations that were presented to the grand jury. So what Cameron did when he released the recordings, 5 hours were cut out. And those 5 hours was Cameron himself talking to the grand jury. He cut himself out of the whole thing. I mean, this is how sneaky this dude is. He cut himself out of the whole thing. And pardon me, y'all. I know y'all are typing things as I'm reading, but, you know, I'm on full screen right now, so I can't see you until I'm done. The recordings do not. Okay, so Cameron cut himself out altogether. So you see other attorneys talking to the grand jury. You hear them talking, but you don't hear Cameron at all because he cut himself out. Okay. Because they are not considered evidence, Cameron said that his office did not recommend murder charges against the other 2 officers involved in Taylor's death. In the interview with a local station, WDRB, Cameron said the grand jury could have recommended more charges if they concluded it was appropriate. No, they are not lawyers. They would not have known to do that. And plus, if you didn't present the case where they could decide on whether those cops were accountable or not, you didn't give them that opportunity at all. The only opportunity Cameron gave them was to decide on the white neighbor's apartment that was above Breonna that had some bullets up in their wall. That was the only thing that was presented to them. See, this dude is the devil for real. Okay, so I suppose you know again that the grand jury had 2.5 days to ask questions. You know, I suppose if they wanted to push, they're an independent body. If they wanted to make an assessment about different charges, they could have done that. But our recommendations was that officers Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in their acts, in their conduct, and that Officer Hankinson, at least it was appropriate at this stage of to charge him with wanton endangerment. And you can best believe Hankinson ain't going to jail for that, y'all. He's not going to go to jail. But in a previous interview with CBS News, University of Kentucky College of Law professor Courtney Lawler said it was unlikely that the grand jurors would have had enough knowledge of equitable law to recommend more serious charges. Exactly. These are regular citizens. They are not attorneys. And Cameron is trying to pretend like, oh, well, you know, if they wanted to put more charges there, they had the opportunity to do so. They're not lawyers. And that should have been, the whole case should have been presented to the grand jury. But this dude, he cherry picked what he wanted to present. That's what he did. He cherry picked. Okay. Most grand jurors are not lawyers. Exactly. They aren't experts with the legal process. And Cameron knows that. Lawler said, they are going to take a look at the evidence and the law presented to them and decide whether there's enough to charge based on what's presented to them. Exactly. See, he's trying to be slick and act like these are legal savvy people. They're not. These are citizens. They are not used to being in a courtroom on a regular basis. They are not used to any kind of legal type of thing, not unless, maybe it's a retired lawyer or something that could have guided the rest of the jurors. But without that, they would not have known. And he knows that. He knows that. So he did set up the grand jury this way, ladies and gentlemen, just to get those cops out of everything. That's all the grand jury was for Cameron. Thank you, Black Voltron FBA 2020, for the super chat. So, this was a really sucker move that he pulled. And a lot of people are now demanding that Tom Wine take over this case and retry it and charge those 3 officers. So we shall see what happens, y'all. But, they certainly need to do something. The protests, they haven't stopped. In fact, they got worse after this grand jury verdict. People are not accepting this. And I'm astonished that he is upset at being mocked. Cameron is actually upset at being mocked out in public by, especially celebrities. He's upset about that. Well, maybe if you would have done your job and done the right thing by Breonna Taylor's family, it wouldn't be this way for you. But your concern is with murderous cops. America is a land that's filled with free murderers that are walking free like everybody else. Okay? They are walking free. You probably got more murderers outside of the jail than you got in the jail. So he's only there in his position to please massa. That's what Daniel Cameron is for. And I feel for anybody that lives in Kentucky and you are part of the Black community. You now know, just because this person has dark skin, just like you, it don't mean he's going to do the right thing by you at all. He's more likely to turn on you than help you. He's already showing you this through the Breonna Taylor case. He can never be trusted, ever. So he motioned to silence this grand juror that wants to tell what happened. In fact, a couple of the grand jurors were just astonished when they came out and started listening to the media. And they realized immediately something was wrong. And that's why this juror wants to speak publicly about Daniel Cameron's conduct in that courtroom when the jurors were present. And I don't know why. Why would a court stop them from speaking unless we know courts are also part of the cover-up? But we'll see how the court rules. They didn't rule yet. But Daniel Cameron may look black on the outside, but on the inside, this dude is definitely a black man with a white supremacist mindset. That's what he is. That's all he is. He did Breonna Taylor's family dirty. He did. When he met with Breonna Taylor's mother, he told her one thing. This is why that woman was crying. This is why she was so upset and crying. She met with him. He told her one thing and then went into the grand jury and did something entirely different. That is how Daniel Cameron gets down. This is what he does. So what he did, that's why that's why you saw Breonna Taylor's mom crying, because what he told her he was going to do, he went in that room with the grand jury and did something completely opposite. That's why she was crying. I mean, that's the part many of our people don't understand. So don't be so hard on the mother. She thought he was going to go in there and do the right thing, and he didn't. He didn't at all. Yeah, what he did was, Najah, that was a coward move. It really was. So everybody, that's what I wanted to show you today. Thank you all for coming. You know, I deeply appreciate each and every one of you. I really, truly do. And Saturday, I have the Blood Moon live stream that I will be doing. And then I have our regular Bible study, you know, for anybody that wants to come and join us. But thank you all for being here. And I just hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace, family.